all of you to be there. Tonight for me it's 8 p.m. For you it's a bit earlier in the day, I think, for most of you at least. And I'm probably one of the biggest fans of custom fields in the world, right? So I'm not a developer, but I'm a huge fan of custom fields. I really think that it totally changed what you couldn't do with Joomla. There are many projects I couldn't do in Joomla without custom fields. And more, when you think of it, you can build, well, almost anything with custom fields. So it was really a game changer. Just to, because some people mentioned when they started with Joomla. So I don't know whether you see my screen. I'm sharing it, but okay. I started Joomla with Joomla 1.5. It was this website when my family, together with my wife and our 2 kids, we went to Burkina Faso in West Africa for 3 years. So I wanted to have a blog, to have a website, and that's how I started with Joomla. It was my very first Joomla website, and it's still running. So it was first article was the 4th of June 2008. So that was the very first website, and then more and more I became involved in the community. I got to know people thanks to the Joomla user group. So Christophe is among us, right? Christophe Aventure is one of the founders of our Joomla user group here in Belgium, French-speaking Joomla user group. And it really changed my life when I joined the group, because otherwise you are stuck alone with your questions or problems or whatever, and then you discover other people and you can have a chat. You give suggestions, you take suggestions. So that's how I started with a Joomla community, with my local Joomla user group. And then Christophe one day told me, Mark, why don't you go to the Joomla day? And I thought, well, this is not for me. I mean, I'm just a little Joomla user. I said, but never mind, just come with me and I'll introduce you to some other people. And so step by step, I went to my first Joomla day in France, then I went to the Joomla day in the Netherlands, because they are really super active in the Netherlands, one of my neighboring countries. So I also went to Germany, I went to Italy for the Joomla World Conference, where I met for the first time Laura. And yeah, so I'm more and more involved in the community. And since I love custom fields, I'm always very happy to speak about custom fields. So my screen is not shared anymore, is it? Is it? Yeah, okay.
It is. I see it.
Okay. So
I'm seeing your the presentation. I see the blue presentation synchronization.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, that's correct.
Great.
So the topic of the day is synchronization between a Joomla website and external sources thanks to custom fields. So I will show a few examples afterwards. But this presentation, everything is gathered on slides that I have prepared. So if you just copy that link, slides.woluweb.be, then you will have this presentation, but also all my other presentations about custom fields or about anything else. I keep a backup, ACY mailing, whatever. So yeah, there are quite a few presentations now. So have a look if you see anything that could be interesting about custom fields. A couple of weeks ago, I made another presentation in Australia. Unfortunately, it was also virtual, like today. I would have liked to be in New Jersey today, but it will only be virtual. So the previous presentation was more general, because it's really a step-by-step presentation about custom fields. So if you don't have much experience yet, have a look at this. In 20 little steps, you see the power of custom fields and how it all works, and even how to make a simple override, layout override. so that you can customize the layout of your website. So you have the links in the presentation, and you also have the video. So it was a 2-hour session. You have the video if you want to see it. So how did this all start? So first of all, Joomla is already a very powerful CMS, right? I guess you are all aware of that. And one of the big strengths are the layout overrides, alternate layout or overrides. There are 2 names, it's almost the same thing. Just to give you an example of the power of overrides. In Joomla, you have a little module called latest news, right? And here's a website made by some friend in France, and he made 15 overrides of the simple module called latest news, right? So this is the basic, the standard layout. It's the first layout. Oh, sorry, I clicked on some link, right? But just with overrides, you can customize it and have a totally different look for the same module. Right here, I'm not speaking yet about custom fields. So you have like 10 or 15 different looks for the same module. Once you start to play with custom fields, you get, before custom fields, you only had the title and the content of your article. But with custom fields, you can really add any other field. So you can start to structure your content and say, suppose you have a film festival, you can say, okay, the year of the film, the trailer of the film, some pictures of the film, the actors in the film, whatever. But you can start to structure your content. And if you put that together with overrides, it means that you can really customize the look of your website. I'll just take a little example. This is just the introduction, but it's just to show how I came to this idea of synchronizing with an external source. I just take a film on that website that I built for a film festival. One second, right? So instead of having only the title and the content, the regular content, right here, I also have in this example a slideshow, well, a photo gallery actually. I also have a video. I also have special links like from famous critics, right? These 2 buttons there. And also for each film, I have links because they are shown at different cultural centers in Belgium. So for each session, you have the link to the place. You have some details. You can, well, you have more information, right? And you have the name of the author, the year, the duration of the film, the country, the language, whatever, the production. So thanks to custom fields and overrides, when you mix them together, you can have really cool things because all my films have the same layout. Now, if tomorrow they say, Mark, we would like the video on the right-hand side and the picture gallery. Well, I just have to change 2 lines in my override and my 100 films will have the new layout, right? Because my information is structured with a custom field. So that's the basics in a few words about custom fields. And one day, and here I give you a couple of links. If you are not experienced with overrides, don't be afraid to start. It's very fun. Once you start to do it, my first override, I would not know a single word of PHP, right, the language. And I would just see, oh, that's the line for the title. That's the line for the image. Okay, I will switch them. And that's all I knew, but I could do it. So even if you're not an expert in programming or whatever, you can start with overrides. It's not that difficult. So there you have two links to interesting overrides. And one day I came with a question of one of my customers, because actually I was already using, it is this website. We were already using custom feeds because this is a website gathering scientific publications, right? Like university publications about health. So, okay, of course there is a title, but there is also an image that's standard. But then there are different types of links. So there is more information than just the title and the content. So if I show you this in the backend, like this first one, intake of 12 food. What does it look like in the backend? Well, that's a regular article, but I have an extra tab in my interface here with the custom fields I have created. So for each custom field, I have the reference number of the study. I have the date, the authors, in which journal it was published, the authors. So sometimes it's just one author, right? You see, you can add authors. Sometimes you can have an unlimited number of authors. Okay, volume, issues, from page to page, some URL, some other technical references. So that was the idea, but all these publications do exist on the web, right? So the guy who is responsible for this website asked me, Mark, I'm a bit lazy. I don't feel like copy pasting for every research article, copy pasting every time the list of authors and all the details, because actually all those informations are already available on the web. There are different websites, databases, gathering all that information. For example, this is, so it's a bit technical, right? You don't read, this is not pure English, it's a JSON format. But for every scientific publication, the name of the author and in which journal and the page and etc. is available on a central website or different central websites in a special structured format called JSON. So what he asked me is, Mark, I'm too lazy. I don't want to fill in everything manually for 100 articles. I would like to have a button so that I only type the reference number, which is called DOY. It's like ISBN for books, right? It's a unique number for a research article. So he said, I want this. I only type the reference number and I have a button, fetch the information from the external website. Then I thought, okay, that's interesting. I'll try to find a nice solution for that. And on the Joomla French-speaking forum, I started a chat with a couple of people, and they said, Mark, why do you want a button? I said, look, I've tried to make it as simple as it is. I don't want an external component, whatever. Super easy, just on this tab, one little button, synchronize the information with the external database. And he said, but why do you need a button? Actually, Mark, with Joomla plugins, Joomla comes along with a series of plugins, right? If you know a bit of Joomla programming, you know what it is. And actually, when you click on the Save button, it already triggers some of those plugins. So actually, we would not need even an extra button. Even for coding, it was easier than what I had initially thought. Actually, if I just empty everything here, right? I just do it quickly. If I empty everything, and I just click save. I hope it works. It does not. I should check the code then. I've just played with this website for a long time. Oh no, sorry. Yes, I see why. It wants everything to be updated, but then we fine-tune that because sometimes it would do a manual change, and it would not want to lose his manual changes. So we even have a button that a custom field that we added. Do we want to update it automatically? Yes or no? So here it was set on no, right? So if I set it on yes, now I resave the article, and hopefully this time everything is automatically filled in from this external website, right? Having all the information in JSON format. So this was the first version. We just have the reference number so that we can fetch the information from the external website. And just for fun, to make it even more flexible, we added one custom field to say yes or no. Do you want to automatically update all these custom fields, right? That was the very first version. I was very happy with that. And this was good enough because in this case, we are speaking of research articles, scientific publications, right? So the information won't change over time. The author of an article which is published in a journal won't change next year, right? Or whatever, the name of the journal or the page or whatever. All this information, once you have fetched automatically the information from the external website, you're happy with it. It's good for eternity. So that was the end of the story. I was very happy with this little plugin allowing to fetch the information from an external website. But then one day, somebody else for another project came with another need, almost the same, but slightly different. Actually, let me show, I have the links here. I just opened a couple of pages. There is in Brussels a central database of all NGOs, I would say, social organizations active in Brussels. Some to help the homeless, other ones to help children, other ones. So this is a central database for all social organizations in Brussels. So how, well, sorry, it's just only in French and in Dutch. But never mind. Actually, I just showed the principle. If you're looking, I don't know, for social something, social service, whatever, you can find all the services you need. You click on one of them, and you have their address, their email, their website, the opening hours, and everything, right? So this is the web page, and you see the URL is just /organization/ the ID of the organization, right? The number 5366 in this case. But actually, for every page like that, if you just if I just change the URL to, and I add this, I see exactly the same information, but not for a human being anymore, but for a computer, right? So it's the same information, but in JSON format, in a structured way. And so for this other project, actually, the idea was, like for the first project, the idea was to fetch the information from that central database, from that external website, automatically. But in the first projects, once you had fetched, it was good for eternity. Here is the opposite. The idea is that every month you would like to update information, or maybe every week, or maybe even every day, because the opening hours can change, the address can change, the email address can change. So that's how I came up with a question of, okay, let's improve our first plugin, which was just updating an article when I save it. And I wanted to have something more general, to have a little Joomla plugin. It's very light. It's like a few pages. If you print it, maybe it's 3 A4 pages, right? So it's not a huge tool. It's not a big component. Anybody with a little bit of coding knowledge could edit the code and customize it to his or her own needs. So we came up with this version. So let me show it. So on the presentation, you have different links. So if you want to see for yourself afterwards, right, how it looks like, you can just see and open those pages. So this is a test website where actually what I want to do is that for all these articles, I want to have them synchronized, like, for example, every week, not just one articles, but all the articles of one category or even several categories. So it's easy. Then I never have to work again on that. For each article, I will give their reference number. I will say yes or no, do I want to update that particular article? And automatically they will get updated. So let me just make a simple demo. So I close the previous website. And on this website, so I have 3 organizations, test 1, 2, and 3. And I will edit one of those. So let's take test 3. All my custom fields are gathered on one tab, which I called Social Brussels. So I took the same idea of having a yes/no button to say whether I want to synchronize that particular article. So I set it on yes. I type the social ID and suppose that I empty all the rest. I'll do it quickly. If I empty everything, right, I save it. So the article is empty. If I go to the front end, you see all articles are filled in, and here test 3 was filled in, but if I refresh now, it's empty, right? All we have are the 2 custom fields to say, do I want to synchronize? Yes. And what is the ID of that institution, organization on that external website? Now, if you stay with me until midnight my time, I mean, you will see that the pages of the article will be updated, right? But I guess you don't have so many hours in front of you now. So I can even force the execution of the plugin. So if I do nothing, I wait until midnight, and every day at midnight, it will be synchronized, all my articles. Social, no, sorry, updates. So on this website, no, I'm not on the right one, sorry. It was here. I should close the article. I go to the plugins. I search for the little tailor-made plugin we made. And it's called, yeah, I called it Custom Fields Auto Update via Web Services. So if I open it, here you see the options. These are the options of the current version, right? That we finalized last week. But with the help of different people, so of Christophe, who is attending, and also Alexandre, Élysée, they are preparing a generation 2, second generation of the same plugin, a complete rewrite. So the idea will be the same, but the code is completely rewritten so that it's even closer to the Joomla core, it's even lighter, it's even more flexible if you want to customize it afterwards. But the current version, it's already on GitHub, is working, right? But you will have a newer one afterwards. So the current options of this plugin, they are very simple. You just say when you want to update it, every 7 days, for example, or every day if I set 1. You can set what time you want to update. Maybe if I have 1,000 articles, maybe it would be quite heavy for the server or for the visitors. I don't want to have a slow website. So I could say, I do it at midnight so that it does not bother anybody. Then I can choose the categories of the articles which will be synchronized. Because not all my articles have those custom fields about opening hours, address, email, etc. Right? It's just on my organizations. On my website, I have other articles like the welcome page, the about us, mission, vision, team, whatever, right? So here I can filter and I can say the plugin should only take care of the articles in one of or several categories. And I can even say whether I want to log the action so that I have a little text file on my website so that if after 1 month I'm wondering, but did it trigger? Did it work every day? I can go to my log file and see, oh yes, it did trigger every day. Or no, there was an issue. Oh, maybe something went wrong or whatever. So you can turn on or off this action log. And the nice thing is that instead of waiting until midnight today, if I just click on save, it will also trigger the plugin. So without waiting for midnight. Indeed, if now I go back to the website, so test 3 was empty, right? And now if I refresh the article, the website went to this page. Where is it? Went to this page for organization number 470. So 470. It went to this page and it fetched all the information. And it filled every plugin, every custom field. So the name, the short name, the address, the opening hours, even the emails. And the emails, sometimes you only have one, sometimes it's structured. You can have several ones. So it takes this into account. Like here, you only have one. There you have 4 emails. And just for fun, I made a fake field so that the little plugin checks, and maybe if I make a spelling mistake in my custom field, it will say that custom field was not found, right? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So it's all automatic, and here you have the code on GitHub. So the demo website, you have the link in the presentation. You can see the explanations. I made it originally in French. In Belgium, we also speak Dutch, so there is a Dutch version. And last week, I translated it to English so that you have a bit the explanation of what I've just said now, and even more specific things like which custom fields I did create, etc. You have a little video showing what we have just seen live now, the situation before and after. So the article here, if I go back to test 3, you see in the back end, everything is filled in. And as I was saying, I can have several emails. So I could have an infinite number of email address. So when you create the custom fields, you decide about that. You know, oh, there will be only one email, or there could be several emails. So I did not show the custom fields I created for this website. This is the list of the custom fields.
Excuse me, could you just show the multi-selection, that email you were just about to do, to show that field? Someone asked a question about that. The multi-select field.
So the email is somewhere here. So when I create it, it's this. I create a custom field called email in French, and I just say that it's a repeatable field. And that's the difference. It's not just an email, it's a repeatable field. And with the current in Joomla 3, because in Joomla 4 it will be even more powerful, but in Joomla 3, then you can say, okay, for this repeatable custom field, so there could be one value, there could be 10, there could be 100. I can say every time I want an email and or even more things, right? It could be that you want to have the name of somebody and the year of birth. And then you could have, for 10 people, name, year of birth. In my case, I only need email. So I said it's a repeatable field and I only need email. And email, I chose to have it in text form. You could have said something else, right? To have the editor, to have a text area according to what you need. But just for an email, a text was good enough. Now, if I go back, as you were asking, to the article, so this is why I can have several values, because I chose the type repeatable for this custom field. So not just a simple text field, but it is a repeatable field. And then when you click on plus, you can add something else. You can delete it by clicking on the red button, and you can even change the order if you drag and drop the blue button, right?
Okay, Mark, next question. That answered that, and I also put a link out to everyone for that, for repeatable fields. And then Dorothy asked, how do you handle any validation or sanitizing of the fields, number 1. Then I have a question of, on this import, can it change tags? So not custom fields, can it define tags for the articles? So it's 2 separate questions.
Yeah, so when you speak about tags, you really mean the Joomla tags?
Yes. Think about it, if you're adding people, you have professors, right? And they'll be tagged as a undergrad professor, you know, whatever their tags are, you're taking that data from an external source. Currently, I'm doing it with RSV improved, and we're doing an import. So I created the scripts to do that. So what would be interesting is if your tool would have the intelligence to be able to add to tags somehow.
Yeah, sure. You could do that. You could totally do that. But maybe we'll see that when I just show the code in a non-technical way, right? We won't read every line of code. But I mean, instead of saying copy, paste, copy from the source and paste into a custom field, you would just change the line to say copy from the source and paste it in the title or in the tag or in the content.
Yeah, or it could be in part 2, right? So Christoph and Alexandra, I'm giving you another, because I know with tags, it's not just the way they're added, it does add another level of complexity. And I'm good at throwing, you know, so I apologize. The other question is, how do you handle validation or sanitizing the fields? I'm not sure how much validation you're able to do.
All right. Okay. Here in my example, I trust the source. So I'm not manipulating the information I get from the external side. So here they have said that the name of the organization is this, I trust it. But indeed, in the plugin, it will be just one extra line of code to say, I want to strip the special characters, or I want to take only the first 10 characters, or I want only figures. I mean, you could make extra checks in the code of the plugin so that at the moment the plugin does the copy paste, it could also manipulate the information before pasting. That would be super easy in the code, right? But maybe I can show, because maybe the time has come. If we go to the GitHub with the current version, with version 1 of the plugin. So here I give all the practical information, because of course this is not a totally generic plugin. It's not that it would work with any source and any field. You have to, in the code, you have to say which field you want to fetch, right? You could generalize it, but then it becomes a bigger thing, right? Here, some of the things are hard-coded. I wanted a plugin to synchronize from my source, being social.brussels. So for me, some things are hard-coded in the plugin itself. But you could reorganize that and make that options of the plugin so that people have a real interface even for those things, right? But there are so many different types of sources of websites which could be the source. So I mean, we don't know in advance what will be your use case and how is it formatted. Maybe it would not be in JSON format. Maybe you would have to adapt a little bit because your source is not in JSON format. Okay, so here I give the code for this particular example, but adapting it would be super easy, even if you have another source and even if you have other fields to fetch. So here I just give the explanation in the README about what I created. I created a few custom fields, a custom field of type radio called custom field update, having 2 values, yes or no, right? What I said, the custom field allowing me to say, no, that article, I don't want it to be synchronized automatically. Then just for information, I give the name of the different custom fields I did create on my website, on my demo website. And if we go to the code, then we will see this copy paste, right, that I was mentioning. So the plugin is just one file. Well, there are more files because you have translation in English and French, right? You have the README file. So technically you have several files, but all the code is gathered in one file. So it's quite easy. Now, of course, if you have never seen PHP of your life, you will say, hey, I don't understand a thing. But just to show, okay, this is the part where I say it has fetched the JSON file. So where is my JSON file? So the code goes and fetches the JSON file, right, with all the information. Then I go back to the code. It will loop through all my custom fields, right? So I have several custom fields that I created. I go back here. So these are all my custom fields. And the code loops through all the custom fields. and it will say, oh, if this is custom field name official, then I will fill it in, right? Or if it is the custom field email French, then I fill it in. So this is what the code does here. It loops, so it says for each custom field, it says, okay, let's see according to the case. If we are in the case of name official name, then from the JSON file, take the value which has the name official French. So the copy paste is just that line, which says my custom field is, well, I have given the same names for my custom fields as the names in the source website, right? I could have given another name, but just to make things easy, I've just taken the same names for every field on my website as they are on the source, the external website. So my custom field is named name official French, and there I put the value that I find in the JSON array, and I take the value for name official French. So it's just this little copy paste thing, right? If you've never seen a line of code, of course, maybe it looks a bit abstract, but there is no more than that. So suppose now I would need to fetch another information that I don't take now, like, I don't know, I'll take the zip code, right? If I wanted to have a new field on my website called zip code, I would just create a custom field, a Joomla custom field, having the name whatever. Let's take zip code then. And in my code, I would just duplicate this and change name official French by zip code, name official French by zip code. And I would also synchronize one extra field, fetching from the external website and feeding my website, right? So for a coder, it's really basic. It's just one line of code to copy paste and change the label, the name, right?
So I have a question. Now it's kind of sinking in. So do we have to change your plugin each time for these specific custom fields?
Yeah, in this current version, yes, because this plugin is made to have an automatic synchronization between my website, where I created my custom fields, and an external site, which I know, where I say I want this and that value that I want to fetch. So if you wanted to do the same for your own use case, well, of course, you would have other custom fields on your website, and you would want to fetch other fields from the external source, but it would just be a matter, basically, all you would have to do would to change these lines to make the copy paste, to make the matching between the fields on your website and the fields on the external source.
So since your plugin allows you to select a different category,
yeah,
right? So then technically, if you're inserting data into category professors, and then you have another category called courses, let's say, the fields are going to be different, but you're saying you would have to put all of those fields into this one script, and then it will bypass, right? Like it's also a different JSON file,
yeah,
right?
This is
meant for one.
You are generalizing even more. If you wanted to do, if you had a special case like that, then you could make, well, either you would duplicate the plugin and give it another name. So you would then have one plugin professors, one plugin, I don't know, institution.
Courses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you could keep it as one plugin, but then you could simply generalize it. And let me just go back to the plugin.
And I think Olivier also brought up, you may need to create multiple fields or multiple plugins as well. Yeah, if you wanted
you
to
could
do
say
different reports.
category for professors and have another option, categories for courses, and a third option, category. So you could keep it as one plugin, but just duplicate the options and in the code, adapt what needs to be adapted.
Okay.
For a coder, it's really simple, right? Even actually, this plugin, well, now it has been, this version since last week has been improved by Christophe, right? So that in PHP, I mean, it's written perfectly in PHP. It's the standards, etc. It was already working the week before, right? But the code was less nice according to the standards. But you can improve upon it and you can customize it to your needs. The previous version was working, and what I had done was just copy pasting the same plugin which was used for the other website, and I just changed the name of the fields. I created other custom fields on my Joomla website. It's just one little plugin, one page of code, right? One file. So it's not like when you have big components with 200 files. I mean, you don't have a clue what's happening there unless you're an extremely good coder. Here, even if you're a beginner in coding, or even if you know a coder who knows nothing about Joomla, in 10 minutes, the person will understand because it's just one file. It's very light. So that's the idea of this. It was to have something very light that you can copy and then customize to your needs.
And it is. It's fantastic. Christophe just made a note about matching it, this custom fields with the JSON array. If that matching can be done in a separate JSON, why not? And it's just interesting. I know it's great. It's really a neat tool. I'll let you keep going. So thank you.
Yeah, well, it's almost finished. Really, the core of the presentation is done. It's just that the reason also why I was interested to play with this idea of synchronizing, even in Joomla 3, custom fields with external sources, was that in Joomla 4, it becomes crazy because Joomla 4 itself will ship with web services. So I'm not a technical person, I'm not a coder, so I cannot explain exactly all the things you can do with web services. But for example, you could have an external software, website, smartphone app, whatever, which would be able to feed directly your website. So instead of creating your articles manually, right, you go to the back end and you create your article new, etc. You could have your articles created automatically from some other website or application, software, whatever. Or the other way around. I was showing this, right, when you have some websites having open data, so offering the information in a structured way for everyone, or for people having the authorizations, of course, like this. So here we have a JSON file. Actually, Joomla will do the same for your website if you enable the option, right? So your own Joomla website can become exactly the same as this source. So if you have a website with a list of professors and different custom fields for those professors, their degree, the classes, the courses they give, etc., date of birth, whatever, your website can become the source for other websites. So exactly the other way around as we have just done here with this little plugin. So web services with Joomla 4 is quite exciting because here we are already tasting a bit the power of playing with custom fields and synchronizing with sources, but all this will be even much easier in Joomla 4. There are several people I wanted to thank. So the first person with whom I worked on this plugin on the very first website where there was no question of synchronizing, right? Automatically every week or every month. It was Pascal from the French forum, and he built the first version of the plugin. And then once I have the code, I'm not a coder, but I can adapt it to my needs. So it was really nice from him to make this first version just for free as a friend. And also for the current version of the plugin, Christophe worked a lot those last days to rewrite the plugin so that it meets all the PHP standards, etc. And Alexandre is working behind the scene. He was busy with the release of Joomla 3.9.21 yesterday, but is about to release the generation 2 of the current plugin. Because there is one thing I did not mention, right? Here, in my plugin, it's very easy when I want to set up the frequency for the synchronization, because in the plugin, I just say, oh, just trigger every 7 days, right? I have a parameter here, and it triggers automatically. But what is the consequence of that? What happens is that this plugin is currently triggered every time a visitor comes to my website. At every page view, the plugin is triggered because it will say, oh, do I have to fetch the information? I'll check. Oh no, the last time was 3 hours ago, so it's not time yet. Okay, for another time. And 5 minutes later, somebody else visits the website, and again, the plugin will say, hey, I'm called. Should I do something? Oh, no, nothing for the moment. All right. And 1 month later is the right time, and 1 month later, it will say, oh, do I have to do something? Yes, I'll do something, and I'll fetch the information and synchronize it. But actually, it means that if you have, I don't know, 1 billion visits to your website every month, and you synchronize the information every month also, it means that you have made this plugin work 1 billion times, right? While actually, if you only need to synchronize once every month, then it would be better for efficiency to have a real cron task, right? So at your host, well, I guess you know what is a cron, right? You can say in your hosting, okay, just launch this file every day at this time, or every month at this time. And so the plugin will be more efficient. And this is what Alexandre is now working on. But maybe you want to, you both want to add a word, Christophe and Alexandre, about the improvements of the plugins, or the things we expect?
Alexandre,
I think he's asking you when you're going to be done.
Alexandre and I are working on the new version. We have a lot of changes in the pipeline, and one of the changes is the client tool, so the CLI script. And I think that the script can be can be done in 1 week, probably.
So if you go to GitHub, the current version already works, right? But like next week or so, we could have a generation 2, next generation, with a completely new code, which will be even more efficient and whatever. But the basics is already there, right, in the current plugin, and the fact that we copy paste from the source to our custom field values. The principle is there already. It's just that it's a complete code rewrite so that we can use a real cron task and it will be super light, super efficient.
In fact, we should first extract some helpers from the actual plugins. So we will have a helper PHP file with general global functions for the clients, tool, and for the plugin.
Now Christophe is speaking as a developer. I mean, I'm not a developer, but I could edit every line of that plugin, right? Even without having his knowledge of, oh, let's make a helper and the CLI, blah, 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 etc. Okay, I'm not able to do that. But to copy paste the current plugin and adapt it to another website, synchronizing with yet another website, I can do it, even with some basic knowledge. So that's my point. I mean, don't be afraid, even if there is a bit of code in there. I mean, it's really for a basic developer level. Once it's ready, because everything is ready.
The version 2 has a documentation ready, auto-generated, and but we didn't do the unit test yet, and we have the install script. It's ready. Yes, today it's already ready. It works. It copies like Christophe wanted the CLI script to the real Joomla folder, the CLI folder and the root of Joomla. It does that, but I didn't try it. I didn't test yet the CLI script live, so on a live on a test website. So the working functionality yet that works for now on the version 2 is when you save the plugin. So when you go to administration plugin and save the plugin, the update plugin, when you click save or save and close, it's going to trigger a manual update of the custom fields that are ready to update. But I mean the articles that have the custom field with update to yes, like Mark showed before.
Yeah.
For the version 2 is already working, but I need some little tricks, some little tweaks to make it ready for everyone. And with the help of Christophe, it will be ready soon.
I think Alexandre means that he lives in Martinique and he needs more rum to finish it.
I don't drink alcohol. I don't drink alcohol. No, I don't need more rum. Oh, Mark is so funny.
Does anyone else, before I want to bring this to a close, does anyone else have any questions? Oh, Stuart had a question. Do you have plans to make this work available in a format that you can actually add to the JED as a Joomla extension?
I was not thinking that far, actually. Last week, I just wanted to clean my code and to make a few slides for today. And now we're speaking of generation 2, cron tasks and everything. Why not? Anyway, it will stay available on GitHub. But I don't know if we can go that one step further and publish it on the JED, because if we publish it on the JED, it should be universal. But how can you make it universal? I decided that my source was social.brussels, and I decided which fields I wanted. And for some fields, I know that they are repeatable fields. So if you really want to make that completely universal, you would need to add many options in the plugin to say, oh, what is the name of the field you want to fetch from the external source? Field 1, field 2, field 3, field 4, field 5, until 20 or 100. So maybe it is overkill. Here we have the engine. Anybody can copy the engine and customize the code according to the needs. Maybe it would require too much to make it completely universal, that you could do everything from the interface. I mean, for a coder, it would be maybe half an hour to duplicate the plugin and adapt it for your use case. So I don't know if it makes sense to make it that universal that you could configure everything from an interface.
So also, so there's a tool that Roland created called CSV Improved. It's now called Roland or whatever. And that actually is similar to Mark's tool, except on steroids. So we're using his tool currently at Rutgers, and there's actually a field mapping system where you define the fields, you create a template. Each template is for a different import. And then you can create cron jobs for it to run automatically. So for our physics.rutgers.edu website and our computer science website, both of them are running CSV Improved every single day and pulling data from the professors from an external data source each morning, and it refreshes the custom fields. So it kind of, some of the things we're asking, it's in that tool already. But I like Mark's tool because it is just a simple plugin. So, and Olivier mentioned, keep it simple, just create a new plugin for each JSON source, and then you can turn on and off. And maybe some kind of repeatable fields for the dynamic field mapping. So maybe your tool could be lifted up a little bit, but I wouldn't attempt to make two versions of what Roland already did. But I love your niche of what you did.
With CSV Improved, what is your source? Is it a CSV file or?
No, I use it from an external database source. So an SQL file, actually. I created views, and it's actually pulling from a view. I'm pretty sure it can pull from a JSON source, but it's not CSV anymore. It's so I'm pulling from I create a view. Initially, it was only able to pull from one table, but I said, Roland, what if I created a view? That's one table, even if it's data from multiple tables. He's like, yeah, I guess that can work. So it does. So we created a view, and then in his tool, I basically select the view, and that maps the fields, so I can map the fields. So, but it's different. It depends on what you're looking to do. So.
But it also takes JSON, you say, as a source.
I'm not positive if it takes JSON at this point. I'd have to double check to see. There you go. Yeah, CSS 7.70, and it does the tags. It does tags. So you can import tags. So our professors, I actually run a query before the import happens. To verify if the tags already exist or don't exist, because what we don't want is to remove all the tags from the professors, because then if something happens with the import, my professors will no longer show up on the website because I'm relying on tags. So we have to do a little careful dance, I guess, with that.
I just had a quick look. I don't have the impression that it takes JSON.
It may not. It may not. I think we took our data from JSON and then brought it into a table. So it was, and then I created a view off of the table.
Yeah. The thing with the thing with Roland's thing, which I've used years ago before I realized it was Roland behind it, is that his actually does multiple things at once. So you can take users and it will create the user groups, it will put them in the user groups, it will add to multiple database areas. So you can create a user and an article and all those things. So it's not flat file to flat file.
Right.
So
in mine, we do that. Yeah, we actually, when we import a professor, every professor that gets added to Joomla also needs a user record created. they need to be there as an author. And then we actually check the file. If the professor no longer exists on the external database, I then go to the user table and block him as a user. So Joe can't then accidentally log in, and Roland's tool does all of that for me. So you can change statuses of fields. So yeah, if the user doesn't exist, then we block it, we unpublish the record, and then if he does exist, we can unblock it, or we'll add it from scratch with the user ID and match them all up. So yeah, it's on steroids. It's kind of neat, but anyway, does anyone else have questions? Oh, Philip, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, while the talk was starting, when we were going through, I was just thinking there's two things you could do. One is you could traverse the node of the JSON file and see what the fields were, what the node points were. So it would give you an idea as to what to call them. And the other thing is, instead of using the case, you could actually just iterate around as long as you called the field name the same as your as long as you called the node the same as the field name, you'd actually have mapping there. So you wouldn't actually have to use the cases, and you just basically, you could use the same, the problem would be your field types, but you could actually use the same plugin for multiple different sources, as long as they were using similar field types like text or, you know, not the repeatables. So yes, to get some more complex one, but you could certainly do that with the simpler versions. And you know, I didn't even think of it, but watching that has given me an idea for a couple of customer things that I need to do. And that's what I would do, is I'd just map and iterate around the nodes, which you could do. So that would actually mean the same plugin be used multiple times.
Cool.
Thank you. I was actually going to ask that, Philip. That's why when I looked at the file, I'm like, well, wait a minute. I was thinking originally, if the fields in JSON match the field names in Joomla, then technically the system would have that intelligence. But
You're
that
almost there, yeah.
too. Dorothy?
And you're almost there.
So close. Any other questions? Oh, Stuart, yeah. Is your hand, I see your hand is up.
Yes. The reason I chatted that question about whether it would be something that could be packaged so that it could show up on the JED is because the JED is our principal way to let the community know in an ongoing manner that resources are available. So I didn't immediately think that this would be easy to make as an extension and package that neatly. However, it just seems like, it just kind of reminds me of presentations at Joomla events where people have worked a problem for a long time, put a considerable amount of effort into it, come up with a lot of solution that may not be as neatly packageable as an extension for the JED, but it would be great if somehow the community had something, an addendum to the JED or some mechanism to let people know that, you know, buried on GitHub is this wonderful piece of work, you know. I'm just throwing the thought out. I don't have a solution for it, what that would exactly look like, you know.
So actually it's similar. We created a working group for educational and outreach, and we're putting together resources that people could use if they're going to teach Joomla, but not as structured as like what's on the JED or something like that. So maybe Philip, I don't know, maybe there could be a working group of just rogue extensions because there are a lot. And Stuart makes a really good point of, you know, the way people find out are from these user group meetings, which is why these user group meetings are so, so important. But maybe there's another level we can do as well.
But why not put it on the JED?
Because it has to be, first, I think it has to work for PHP, older versions of PHP.
I don't think that's true. I think that's a recommendation. But I mean, for example, Joomla 4, although it's not a hard minimum, the request is that it's in the set, I think it's 7.1 or 7.2. Mm-hmm. So you could use it on lower spec servers, but you would prefer to use it on 7. I was totally unaware that the JED had a requirement. So it'd be worth looking into that. But it wouldn't be that difficult to backport it. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm always pushing to go onto the newer versions of PHP. Yeah, I think that would be all right. Get it out there, give it a go.
Okay, so anything else before I wrap this up? Stuart, do you have another comment?
No, I'm
You're
fine.
good?
Thank you.
I think this was fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you everyone so much. And I want to plug Joomla Day Chicago one more time. And there are so many different user groups. I will do my best to let people know when I find out about different meetings, and we'll all do the same for each other as much as we can. And if anyone's on the GLIP channel, and if you're not on the GLIP, you can get on there. There is a Jug organizers channel that's specifically for people that are running a Jug. So if you're not on that, send me a note. And Philip or Mark, what is the URL? If someone's not on the GLIP, what do they do to get on it? Like, I think I had to be invited, no?
Yeah, you've got to, well, there's a bit of a break with GLIP. It's nothing to do with Joomla, with Ring Central, but effectively just message someone who is in it, and then they can add you as a guest.
Okay, so if you message me, let's see. So what link do I give them though to go to the Joomla GLIP channel? You know what I'm saying? What?
You get the email address, and if you go into GLIP, you can, one of the things you can do is add users. So you do it, and it just gives you a little box to put their email address in, and it sends out an invite.
Okay, so I would have to add them as a user, and I would just add them to the general community?
Yeah, but if you've got any issues or problems, give me a shout, and I'm quite happy to talk you through it.
I see it, perfect. Okay, so I see. So I have an option here to invite people. So what I'll do is, after this meeting, if anyone that's here wants me to add them, yes, Robin, I got you.
Well, I used to get a whole ton of emails from GLIP, and then they sort of have died out, I think, or.
The issue with GLIP is
depends what group you're in.
at the moment, so you don't. So the general community channel, everybody should be joined to, but you're only now joined if you are have a community email address, because that's the organization's email address, and you can't add guests to it, and people who signed up with a domain that's outside the community now are only added as guests, and there's nothing we can do about that. And the other thing is, of course, it costs to have all the community addresses, so we can't just give everybody a community address. So that's why there's the announcements channel, so you can be invited into that if you're a guest, and you'll see the announcements, but you don't get automatically put into the community one unless you've got a community address. So, but as I say, this is nothing to do with Joomla. This is purely a glitch in GLIP.
Yeah.
So Dorothy, if you want to send me your email, I can add you again to the community one and see if that works.
Yeah, they probably reduced what they were paying for, or it timed out or something. I don't know. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so again, thank you everyone. Mark, thank you so much. I did record this meeting.